Hey there, everybody. So today I'm going to be talking about my top 3 choices for browser-based editors. These are editors that you can use on your computer. Now, I have done like my top picks. I've compared some. I've done a bunch of different things, but this is the first time I've just sat down and said, these are the only ones I want to use. So we're going to talk today about Pixlr, Photor, and Photopia. Now, each one of them have different strengths, different weaknesses, and so what we're going to talk about is why I choose each one for the different things that I do for art education. And since we're all online, a lot of people have had to really switch over to using these because not everybody has access to it, and a lot of people are on Chromebooks, and these will work on a Chromebook, and that's the key, because there's a lot of schools that have Chromebooks, and Chromebooks are not great for editing. However, with these ones, you don't need the processing power of a supercomputer to be able to use them. They're browser-based. So as long as you have a decent internet connection, you should be able to use these programs. So let's start first with Pixlr. Now, Pixlr has 2 different forms, Pixlr X, which is a little bit easier, and Pixlr E, which is a little bit closer to Photoshop. I usually tell my students not even to touch Pixlr X because it's just a little too simple. Now, one of the winning features of Pixlr is that you can save your stuff in the site as long as you don't change computers and you don't clear your history. Your stuff will stay on the browser. Now, it isn't perfect, and so one thing I always tell them is also put a heart next to them in order to actually keep them pinned and saved. Otherwise, they can actually lose their stuff still. So it looks very similar. It works with layers, which is really great, and similar as Photoshop. It has adjustments and it has some filters. It has gradient and it has selectors, and depending on how you want to use it, it's also got a couple different like spot removers. So it's got pretty much everything you need for kind of like a skinny Photoshop. So it works really nice. It's I would highly recommend this, especially if you want something that is a little bit more reliable. It is cleaner to look at, and it works really great, in my opinion. I have been using it for the whole year, and I have a few very specific complaints, but for the most part, you get what you pay for, and you don't have to pay anything. One thing that a lot of people get confused by is it does have a sign-in thing, but you don't have to sign in. Everybody thinks they do, but you don't. So you don't have to sign in if you don't want to. So that is the first browser-based one, which is Photopia. Now, our Pixlr. The second one that we're going to talk about is Photopia. So Photopia is nice because it, I think, is probably the closest to Photoshop. It's got more options, it's got more tools, but it is clunkier. It does have a few issues. It will sometimes crash your internet, or not your internet connection, but your browser will sometimes crash if you overload it. It doesn't have the same save option. So for instance, once you're saving, you will want to save it to your desktop as a PSD, and you can reopen it as a PSD. This also can be a winning feature. So notice all the ads going like crazy on the side. I should have scooted it over so it didn't have those. Anyway, so as you are going through it, this actually could be something that is a benefit in the future. For example, if you have a student who is frequently absent, you can actually have them work on some of it at home, save it as a PSD, and then they can work on the actual Photoshop here. So it has that movability. The other thing that Pixlr doesn't have, that Photopia does, is Photopia can work in RAW. Pixlr cannot work in RAW. And Pixlr actually doesn't work in a few different cell phone options as well. So there are a couple different ways, like a Hayek, I think is what it's how you pronounce it, that you can take with your cell phone. A lot of times those won't work in Pixlr as well, where Photopia is a lot more forgiving. It'll pretty much take in whatever file you give it. So that is another reason why I like Photopia. So like I said, Pixlr is a little bit easier to use. It's a little bit easier to teach. It does even have a YouTube channel too. So one other thing that I do like is there is an entire thing right built into it you can go to, and they have different tutorials that you can use that are set up already. So if you are really bogged down and you don't know how to learn it yourself, there's a whole YouTube channel that they've made for you. So that's really nice. However, like I said, if you are working in RAW, you won't be able to work on Pixlr. So that is kind of another reason, plus a negative, why I use Photopia for editing. So the last one that I want to talk to you about is Fotor. Now, Fotor I kind of came across because I was having kids just, couldn't see all the editing tools, and they weren't thinking like an editor. They could put everything together and cut everything out, but they weren't actually editing like you would when you're in Lightroom, when you have all your settings. So I found Photor, which I like to kind of consider the internet's Lightroom. And so what you can do is you bring in a photo and you have like make a collage and make a design. There's a couple little things that kind of make it a little bit more fun in here too. And you can then import a bunch of pictures, just like Lightroom. You can actually bring in like a series of photos and just click through them the same way that you would on Lightroom. I'm just going to drag and drop this glamorous picture of myself that I took with my horse. Ah, look at that, everybody. It's also a very blurry picture, apparently. So anyway, it's very clearly marked anything with a diamond is paid for. So you can't use those. They won't let you export is the thing. But the adjustments are really nice. It has all the main adjustments that you would want to use. And this is really good for just editing photos. Now, this won't be where you're going to be doing like design and cutting out and all the other things that Photoshop and stuff is used for. But remember, if you're thinking of it as kind of like your Lightroom equivalent, this is a pretty nice one, especially if you have to edit a bunch of photos. See how there's like 1 to 50, you can then keep flipping through them and you can edit a series of photos as opposed to just having to load one in and then keep going and load one in and keep going. There are a couple other fun things in here, like for instance, there's the beautify, which some of them are like you can do a blemish fix. There's wrinkle remover. All of those are free. You can do some cloning as well. So if you want to clone hair and stuff. The other one is there are some special effects that go with it too. There are like grunge look or glitch look. A lot of these effects are paid for, but there are some pretty kind of classic effects that you can get in there too. You can also put text. So for instance, if your students are like, I really would like to make my graduation cards, you can make a graduation card in here pretty easily. The other thing that is really nice is some of the elements. You can kind of put stickers. So if your kids wanted something a little bit more fun or a little bit younger, this is a good solution. Also for you, or if you're like just you need something a little bit more streamlined than having to load in singular pictures at once into Photoshop or Photopia or Pixlr. So those are my 3 browser-based softwares, the pluses and negatives that go with them. I would say Fotor acts on its own. I would have Fotor plus another one. So usually I use Pixlr and Fotor, and then I show Photopia for students who are interested in editing in RAW, but for the most part, everything that we end up doing, we finish in Pixlr. We don't actually have to bring in Photopia. So I always kind of say just kind of combine them together just like you would combine Lightroom and Photoshop or something. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you didn't think it was kind of repeating. I just wanted to really make it clear which ones I have now tested and I have found to be my fireproof options for the best browser-based software. So if you have any questions, I probably won't answer them because I don't read the comments. Ha! Anyway, have a good day, everybody. Bye!